by Great West into the draft master plan. I'd like to introduce Jim Jarvis and Chad Hansen, who are with Great West, and they're the consultants that the city is contracted with to review the older documents and bring those up to date into a new master plan. So I'll turn it over to Chad.
All right. Good evening. For those I haven't met yet, I'm Chad Hansen with Great West Engineering out of Billings. We've been working with the city for quite a while on different projects. Jim Jarvis is a contract planner that's worked with us on numerous projects. He's got a background in historical preservation, revitalization. This is kind of his jam, so he's helping me out because I'm an engineer, and so I needed some help. But anyway, as Jeff kind of outlined, we're working to update the downtown master plan. We've gone through and gathered a draft pulling forward all the information included in the 1984-86 plan, the original one, the 2006 action plan. And before we finalize the draft, originally the plan was to do focus groups to provide comment on the draft plan. The planning board received comments that it would be better to solicit wide open input instead of comments on a plan we wrote, and we agreed, so we pivoted. So that's the focus groups today, are to get different perspectives and interests, and we'll have some topics here. We'll start, Jim will go through the background and the process and where we're at in the timeline, and then we've got 4 discussion points. We'll do some open forums. Everybody will get to vote and prioritize what they think is important, and then we'll take that, incorporate that information into the final draft plan. It'll go back to the planning board, where it'll be reviewed with soliciting more public input and public review. Then they kick it over to the council, who again will have a public hearing on it. And so there's going to be multiple opportunities throughout the process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim, and he'll kind of update us on the background.
Thank you, Chad. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for those who've already heard my spiel a time or two today. This is our 3rd go at this today. But again, welcome to the meeting tonight. Just a little quick background about myself. My wife and I have lived over in Virginia City, Montana for the last 25 years. We did some time in Butte as well. Historic preservation, heritage tourism. We ran a small business in Virginia City for about 10 years. So we have a pretty good feel for the seasonality issues and challenges associated with that. We've always been impressed by Red Lodge. We would come over and do our every 3 to 5 year visit through Red Lodge from Virginia City just to see what was going on over here. And it's been impressive to see what you folks have accomplished in those 20 some years. But we're now at a point where, again, as Chad mentioned, you've got 2 previous plans. I think it's actually 1984 revitalization plan, which was very strong or focused on the design, the look of the architecture of your community. It was a pretty impressive document produced kind of back in the 80s when a lot of communities like Red Lodge were economically struggling. There wasn't a whole lot going on in rural Montana or rural anywhere for that matter in the 80s. So the communities were being encouraged to get creative and embrace other industries. If mining has now moved on, if agriculture has perhaps faded a little bit, you might want to look elsewhere. And your community, you're back in the 80s, as you approached your 100-year anniversary at that time, is my understanding, ultimately decided to look, to go all in on tourism, which had already been a thing, is my understanding here in Red Lodge for some time. But so anyway, that was what brought in the study in the 84. Again, very much about how to put the old town back together from an architecture perspective, and then provided a strong historical connection and motivation to do that. And then that plan was updated roughly 20 years later in 2006 as part of an assessment and action plan that was conducted I believe shortly after the landslide that closed down the Beartooth Highway in 2005. Created quite an economic impact. And so they did this update and created the action plan that you folks have been working under for the last almost 20 years. And so now we're looking at an update to that. And so that kind of brings us to today. So what kind of got this all going is, excuse me, Red Lodge is part of the Montana Main Street program, created in about 2005. I understand Red Lodge was one of the principal communities that were part of that creation of the Main Street program here in Montana. And because there was already a strong tourism element here. And then that program has kind of been embraced through the years. The main focus point of that program is what they call the four-point approach to downtown revitalization. And those are the 4 points there shown inside the star. Economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion are the 4 main points that are kind of looked at as a model to work with communities that were struggling and needed some focus. And this program was developed through the National Trust for Historic Preservation at the national level, and then has trickled down to the various states to be implemented as they see appropriate. And so Red Lodge has been part of that program for some time now. Moving along. So what is a downtown master plan? And I think basically, please review all this information. But to me, it's that last sentence over there under what is a master plan, the underlined one. The goal is to create a vibrant and thriving downtown that benefits both residents and visitors alike. And so it's left up to each community to decide what is the best fit that balances tourism, visitation with, also the community. Trying to create a downtown that serves both groups is the focus. And again, those 4 points that I mentioned earlier, economic vitality, and seems to be a real encourage assisting both new and existing businesses to come to a community, how to strengthen or support the existing businesses, but also encourage appropriate infill businesses within that mix is one of the main pillars of the project or the program. Design is a big piece of it, like your 84 study really focused on what makes this place, from an architecture, from a look and a feel perspective, what makes it special. And so the 4-point approach really focuses all communities to, take a close look at enhancing their physical and visual assets, whatever those may be for a given community. Certainly with Red Lodge, you have a very, compact, surviving historic Main Street presence. A lot of your buildings dating from the turn of the century, 1900, 1920. So well over 100 years old now. Has definitely a nice feel to it that has been picked up numerous times in those various publications about how to maintain that, again, the walkability and so forth of the community. And then the final 2 pieces of the puzzle are the promotional element and organization. Realizing that with small communities, there's not a lot of resources. There's not dedicated employees that typically only focus on, tourism promotion or marketing and advertising. The program really encourages, the communities to get creative and come up with promotional efforts that fit the community, but also basically within the resources at your disposal, showcase a community's unique characteristics. And then finally, organization, which because of those typically limited resources, you end up having to create these partnerships. At least the effective programs typically rely on multiple groups all working somewhat in sync with one another towards a defined goal. Seems to be a characteristic of successful downtown Main Street programs. So those are the 4 points in a nutshell. So again, both Chad and I spoke to this already. You started out with your revitalization master plan in '84. That got updated in 2006 with much more of a action oriented punch. I relied heavily on that 2006 study as I began my research on this project back in April. Both reports are excellent. As I mentioned, they have a different emphasis or focus. The 2006 report really had seemed to have a very strong process involving community input, came up with a series of very specific goals and objectives. And from what I can tell, the community has utilized that document, which as a planning consultant makes my heart feel good, because so many of our reports get written and you wonder if they ever get used. And so in your case, it appears you folks actually have taken it to heart. And so if you look at the 2006 action plan, you can check off a lot of boxes of things that you folks have accomplished. There are things that still would probably be appropriate to continue talking about. And those are the things that we tried to recycle or drag into this now 2024 update to that. And we're mainly just calling it a downtown master plan, for lack of a better title. So those are the two plans. Oh, and the other thing that's important, why this is all happening now is your community was already in the process of updating your local growth policy, which in Montana is what they refer to as an enabling document. It's not a regulatory document, but it is a document that all communities are encouraged to create. There's kind of a set format to that, where a community basically looks at its strengths and weaknesses, its needs and challenges, whether that's water and sewer issues from an infrastructure, environmental issues, economic issues, all that gets incorporated into the growth policy. The downtown master plan is being looked at as a supplement to that growth policy, very specific just to your downtown area. But ultimately, it'll all get incorporated into this new growth policy. So that's why all this is going on now. And then there was funding available to facilitate the community in updating both of those documents. And that funding was awarded through the Montana Main Street program, because Red Lodge is affiliated with that program. And so they received a grant of $37,500 to allow for both of those documents to be updated. And so that's where we're at today. One of the questions that emerged as I reviewed the documentation, I was seeing input from the community that it indicated that there was some maybe confusion or change occurring in your downtown area as to where it actually was physically. Is it truly just kind of that magical 3 or 4 blocks along Broadway Street in the Pride Park area, Broadway Avenue, excuse me? Is that the downtown, or is it now expanding further north towards Lions Park and the library and the Historical Society? You know, there seems to be kind of a quiet area in there that if the downtown did wish to expand, would probably be a logical place for that to occur. What would that look like? Those types of things is what we're trying to wrap our brain around based on your input. And then also clear all the way out to the north side there where the traffic circle is. How does that change things as to how you see or envision your downtown? And then, of course, the peripheral areas off of Broadway, whether that's onto Platt or was it Hayes or Oak or whatever it is off to the, thank you. So again, that is a question I think that needs to be asked and answered by you folks as to, you know, where exactly is the downtown and how would you like it to grow over time? Because again, these are planning documents. They have a 5 to 20 year life expectancy. So again, it's important to kind of look into the future and, start doing the planning, lay out the projects that you would like to see happen to maintain your downtown in the way you want it to be maintained, but also to continue to develop it, if that's what you wish, in a way that is coordinated and sympathetic to your needs, I think is really the important thing. Any type of planning document of this nature, you need a vision statement kind of embodying what your community is all about. This was an attempt that I made to come up with a draft vision statement based on what was in the 2006 action plan. There was a rather lengthy vision statement in there, roughly a page in length, and it covered a lot of interesting things. But mission statements or vision statements are usually a little more focused than that. So I took the liberty to kind of distill down 4 paragraphs into 1 paragraph and offer it back to you for your consideration as to, again, what is your vision for the downtown going forward? So again, this is a draft effort at that. And then I also picked up on a kind of a branding statement that was put out in your most recent annual report from your local Chamber of Commerce, more of a marketing brand to complement the mission statement. And I thought it was appropriate to also present that to you folks too for further comment as to, is that truly where your brand, what your brand is? Is that where you want your community to look like, and how you want to market yourself to the outside world? I think it's quite lovely, but ultimately I think you folks need to revisit that and recommit to that. As for a timeline for this project, I think Chad spoke to that a little bit. Right now, we're in the 3rd box there, the September, October review of this document that's kind of slowly taking shape based on our review of those previous documents and what we're hearing in terms of input from the community. There was a series of workshops and outreach meetings late last year. Some of you may have been involved with those. And so we've got that input of a more recent nature, and we're trying to fold that in with the information from that 2006 study. Again, the items that still seem to be hanging out there and needing additional consideration. So that's where we're at now, looking for that additional public review. And then again, we'll finalize the document and present it back to the town council for adoption towards the end of this year as part of the growth policy, which is a whole separate series of discussions going on that are more broad focused than this one, which is, again, focused on the downtown area. So that, in a nutshell, is the background for the project. And at this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Chad to walk you through some of these questions to hopefully prompt further discussion amongst you folks.
Okay. So tonight what we're going to do is we've got 4 discussion topics to try little bookends and keep us on track. We're going to talk about the existing downtown things we love that are working, we want to make sure and preserve moving forward. Then we're going to talk about current challenges, opportunities we see, and then just long-term vision. And we'll go back to that vision statement Jim synthesized from the 2006, just to see what still applies, what might need to be modified, what no longer applies, what we want to add. So we're going to start with the existing downtown, what we want to preserve, things that are working. And before I give you guys a shot, I got to double check this. And we're going to have you speak into the microphones so people on Zoom can hear what's going on. Derek with Beartooth Billings Clinic wanted to be here tonight, but he's ill. So he emailed me his comments, so he gets to jump on it. He wants walkability up there. So, and then he sent some challenges when we get there. So who wants to jump in and start? What are things we want to preserve about the existing downtown? Well, I know you have thoughts.
I could probably think of more things, but to start with, I'll say I will double up on walkability. I think that's something that's great and could be better. I really like the hanging flowers. They're beautiful, and I think that should be preserved. Let's see, other things about downtown to preserve. My other comments are more toward things to add. So maybe I'll say that at another time.
Yeah, we'll
or-
save those for opportunities.
Okay, okay. I might think of something else, but that's it for now.
Well, we can come back.
The open and friendly atmosphere. I hear so many visitors comment on what a friendly town it is, and the number of nonprofits and the number of people that are actively contributing to the community. People just drive through and notice that, and I think that's a wonderful thing to preserve.
Fact that almost all the businesses and buildings are occupied.
The historic look to the buildings in the main part of downtown, Main Street.
Yeah, there was a lot of work done after that 1984 plan, and we'd hate to scrap all that. I think up here, Jeff. Are you keeping up? Do you need a break? Here, give us 1 second. She's catching up. And I didn't introduce, this is Sherry Jarvis, Jim's wife. She's been helping all day with the scribing, and because I couldn't write that fast or that neat.
Thank
So-
you, Sherry. Yeah, kind of just covering what other people said. I think the aesthetic of town is like extremely important. The fact that a lot of our buildings are turn of the century ones, and any I think keeping in mind like any further development that happens in downtown should maintain that aesthetic, and instead of developing kind of more modern American developments that are really jarring. That's what makes this town really good.
I like the unique owner-operated businesses.
How about over here? There's got to be something about downtown you like and you want to see stick around.
I like the mix, I'm Kim. I like the mix of the green spaces within the community or in the downtown area. You know, you have Lions Park, you have Pride Park, you have different areas in addition to the businesses.
Vibrancy, big piece. Just there's always something active happening downtown. The streets are full. People are often moving around. Definitely want to keep it lively.
You guys must have had a long day, kind of like us, so there's got to be more. Anybody back there? You guys are going to make Jeff go back and forth. I like it.
You know, the fact that it's a contiguous business area, it isn't spread out. It's a focal point for local activities, parades and Christmas stroll, etc.
This goes along with like the historical architecture piece, I think, which is the signage conforms with what's going on downtown. Like it doesn't look like Las Vegas when you.
So
drive
you're talking the
downtown.
business signage,
Yes.
not the wayfinding stuff.
No, the businesses.
the business
business
sign-
downtown, like there's some
They fit the
continuity there.
aesthetic and they're not big glaring neat.
Right, and they're not like
billboards.
covering up the architecture, they're complementing it.
I like the feeling of safety that came about sort of by mishap in not widening the sidewalks because we get a lot of snow and a lot of traffic. It's nice that people can get out of their vehicles and not get run over.
So safety in regards to the wide streets and extra wide parking lanes? I do appreciate that. I drive a big truck and I do like that I can get out of it and not feel like I'm gonna lose a door. Who else?
The Christmas stroll in the main street, several blocks are closed so that people can safely walk in and cross the street during the Christmas stroll.
So is that just the Christmas stroll or like the Fourth of July parade, like all the events?
Yeah, that
or
as well. Yeah.
You want to keep the downtown, the big events and I'm
yeah,
not trying to put
yeah.
words in your mouth. I just want to make sure I understand.
I guess my main thought was Christmas stroll because of it being winter.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
being able to safely cross and
Anybody else? You guys are taking it pretty, oh, back here, Dwight.
I'm just really in love with the scale of everything in downtown, that it encourages interaction between passersby. And any larger, and you really lose that, I feel. Like if you look at Cody, it's very different space just because of how much larger the scale is. And I just love this city for that.
All right. Anything else we want to add to the list? Al's got some.
I was waiting for somebody else to bring it up, but they didn't. I think we need to preserve some of our assets such as the pool, to develop the pool, maintain the pool and Lions Park, where we have the ice rink and the farmer's market and things like that. I think those are areas that attract not only our residents, but people from out of town. And I think it's an area we take pride in, and I think we definitely need to preserve and develop those areas.
So facilities kind of on the periphery of the downtown that attract people downtown?
And it was mentioned in earlier groups, and I was hoping this group would come up with it, but since they didn't, I will jump into the middle of this and make sure it's there.
All right. Any others you guys want to put on the list? Now comes the fun part. Everybody gets to come up and grab 3 little stickers and you get to vote. And you can vote 3 times for 1, 2 for 1, 1 for 3, what do you think is the most important to you on this list, and put a little sticker next to it, or 2 or 3. So we'll take a few minutes and everybody come up and mark what you think's the most important about preserving downtown. Lead the way, Nick. I thought that I was gonna get last, yeah. No. All right, did everybody have a chance to do your stickers? Oh, wait, just a second, Sherry. Got it, Sherry? Okay. All right. Are we good? Okay. The next topic, we're going to talk about some of the challenges with downtown. And are you ready, Sherry? The two that Derek emailed me were pedestrian safety and then safe access to the hospital, whether you're driving, riding, walking. Well, he is the CEO of the hospital, so COO. He's a C-suite of the hospital. So with that, we'll open up. I know some of the answers already, but what do you guys see as some of the challenges with the downtown?
All right, now we have to say we have a definition of downtown, so I'm going to use the visible historic downtown. And I see service businesses slipping into areas that should be retail or food and beverage. And it happens in towns where occasionally people are not optimistic and then somebody slides in with an area that it's nice to have. There's nothing wrong with the business, but it's not the sort of retail vibrancy that is going along with the Main Street
Can you
program.
give me an example of that service?
I'd rather not.
Well, we had a similar comment earlier and they're like, a plumber probably should have a shop in another
Nails
part of town
salons.
instead of Main Street.
That there are a lot of aesthetics. And we did have, I think, a few more real estate offices, which are marginal. I mean, they have nice looking things in the window that make people very interested. But if you want to keep your retail and your recreational use of downtown alive, you need to keep it dense.
Okay. Commissioner.
I think one of the bigger things that when you look at all this, the two parallel streets to Main Street, but then with that goes the space. I mean, that's one of the attractive things about our town, I think, given the confines in the valley that it's in. It's a very endearing location, but to have, where do you put all the cars? I mean, parking is at a premium, and that level of parking, I support the walkability and the accessibility and the familiarity with downtown. One of the great reasons to live here, but where do you stack all those vehicles in a place and manner that's still convenient to get out and walk or stretch your legs?
Yep. Parking's been one of the top 3 topics. What other challenges do you think that downtown's facing?
Speak more direct. More direct. All right, you got it. I think as somebody who rides a bike a lot in this town, I think it's very difficult to actually bike down Broadway. There aren't really many accommodations. I find myself going on one of the side streets instead to avoid the excessive traffic or the potential of getting doored by a car. I think having some sort of option, hopefully at not too much compromise to other public space, would be a good way to keep people on Main Street riding bikes, and it would help stimulate business, opportunities, I think, as well.
Another challenge is bathrooms. We do have
Public restrooms?
public restrooms. We have Ace Hardware and the Pollard, but nobody knows that are visiting us know where the bathrooms are. So it looks like we need even more.
Yeah, like if you're in front of Ace, then you'll know the Ace is one, but not if you're, my contribution was gonna be snow removal.
Snow removal. Yeah, that's one of the other top 3 we've been seeing.
Redesign the crosswalk curby thingies.
The ADA corners?
Well, they can still be ADA, but
Well,
They're-
that's what are you referring
that's
to
what
the
I'm talking
corners with
about,
the
yeah.
ramps?
Because now they have those curbs that trip people and
Mhm.
they're all broken and more bike racks. We put that with bike safety. I've
The ADA corners, yeah. It's the ADA corners and the sidewalks has come up pretty regular, so. Yeah, they don't.
And my next comment kind of goes along with that, I guess. It's difficult to cross the street at some intersections because the traffic can't see you until you like step out in front of a vehicle that's parked there. And then sometimes it scares them and they like slam on the brake. And it's not even that you're leaping out, but you have to, it's just, the intersections are blind, and for cars pulling out too, they're blind and difficult. And I've heard talk of painted bump outs, so then plowing won't have a problem.
That's up here with Nick, or do you still, wait?
I'm reading my list, yes. Okay.
I like it. She did her homework.
And another one along the lines of traffic is with the increased and increasing amount of traffic, particularly during the summer, it gets really challenging sometimes to trying to cross Main Street to go to the post office or do errands on the opposite side of the street from the side you live on.
So that's kind of the same as pedestrian safety and the difficulty in the street crossings and, okay.
I'll double up on the parking too. I think trying to discover a off-Broadway place that's convenient for people to park and walk downtown.
Nick's got. Maybe it was doubling up on parking.
I was gonna say more trash receptacles on Broadway. There's and recycling, yeah. There's a couple of them, but they're kind of few and far between, and they get a little, well, they get too well loved.
I'm like Al, I'm Joanne Eater, and was waiting for somebody else to say this, but all through the report, one of the greatest challenges is workforce housing. You can't have vibrant businesses, vibrant restaurants, thriving town without providing housing for the workers that we need. And it may not have to be within those particular blocks, but it has to be. And one of the solutions is density. And I know we don't like that. We'd rather keep everything the way it is, but that's one of the most economical and efficient ways of adding housing. For instance, ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, as part of people's backyards. And that takes infrastructure. It takes the city to make a commitment to adding infrastructure so that that's possible, because the owner, it's tremendously expensive if they have to put in all the water and sewer lines. So, workforce housing.
But just use density.
Just to kind of go off of what Joanne said there too, I think that density is actually really important, and I think it's underutilized at this point. So I guess that's more of an opportunity, but as a challenge is, how do we get the infrastructure in place to increase that density? I think that is, infrastructure is always going to be a challenge, especially when you're working with old infrastructure. So that is something we're already feeling the pains of this summer. But that being said, it has to be done, but it will always be a challenge to how do we get the funding for increased infrastructure, maintaining the infrastructure we already have, and improving on that infrastructure, and also having the foresight to predict what you might need and what's going to be the best resource and tool 30, 50, 75 years from now.
I want to echo the public restrooms. We have one public restroom, I think, it's located down at Lions Park, that is not associated with a business. So we did a public restroom kind of in the heart of the downtown area to accommodate visitors. And the second thing I'd like to mention is that we need additional resources to maintain the landscaping that we have from the roundabout all the way probably up to about the Roosevelt Center.
This is actually just a clarifying question for the moderators, because I think it will affect what answers we get. So when you framed how we were going to answer these questions, in my mind, it was focused on downtown in particular, or are you looking for suggestions for the growth policy today as well? Because to Joanne's point, I would have other things to say if your desire to collect feedback was not focused just on downtown, but on the future growth of Red Lodge in general.
The focus of these groups is the downtown master plan, but that doesn't mean it has to be just downtown, because like the mention of preserving, the ice rink and Lions Park and things, the pool, they're peripheral, but they attract visitors to downtown, right? The sanctuary brings people to town, the high school football games. So it doesn't have to be downtown, but we do want to tie it to the downtown and how it impacts downtown.
I think it bears mentioning, it's a significant challenge, but it's just a factual designation of what it is. It's still a US highway. It's Broadway, but it is a US highway.
And we have to play with MDT.
And MDT's always, in my experience, been a great partner.
Yep.
But what they can and what they cannot allow has to be part of the conversation. And if that is part of the conversation and those challenges are too great, to follow what they've got to do to keep their US highway open and functioning, is there an alternative to that? And that changes a lot of things and shifts the view of what it is. But then, that's a question. It's a big challenge, I think.
And they do have to comply with tons of federal regulations and the FHWA. And so, yeah.
And there are some underutilized businesses on Broadway
or opportunities for later. There's one particular one where people are living in the downtown retail space and the windows are covered with brown paper. Normally, when you go into a town and there's brown paper on the windows, that's not a very healthy town, so it doesn't present a healthy look. There's a vacant lot. The Theatorium is as close to the downtown as you could be, and it would be nice to be able to think ahead on how that could be used. I think a big challenge when I'm listening to all these is communicating the opportunities to visitors. There are things that we have that are not being shaken in their faces, and a lot of them come from non-small town communities. So when you're talking about walkability, the opportunity to stroll a block or two or three is not the end of the world when you're looking for parking. And finding restrooms, how to communicate all the things that we take for granted and really appreciate in our town.
Yeah, just signage communicating that. Yep.
And kind of to tag on to that, I mean, we're at the historic train depot, which is just a block. I mean, we're in that cultural district with the library and the history museum, and yet people forget that we're there and we're huge. I mean, we're right on the corner of, right by the Lions Park, we're by the public restrooms, tons of free parking. But to get the challenge to get people just a block off of Main Street, that's what I see.
So-
It's tough.
So you're stretching them north?
Well,
North,
I
and
fig-
we've
I
also
feel that
heard
part of downtown,
difficulty
but maybe we're
stretching
not.
off the side streets too, even a half a block.
I mean, yeah.
I would like to add a failure to address or complacency in accepting eyesores leading into downtown. Like, for example, the motel that's been there for years in that state, unkept landscaping at like a business Prendy's restaurant, where it's like grows 4 or 5 feet and doesn't get any attention. Trailers that are parking, like at the Geo building, the old bank building, a trailer parked right in visual sight. It's like there's some complacency, I think, in the town that we all start getting used to that. But when people are coming into town, it sets an image of the town. And I think more and more things that are first impressions, we're just overlooking.
So kind of code enforcement and complacency of.
Sure.
Yeah. I think you guys are getting in the groove now. We're gonna run it. We're gonna have to get a third piece of paper. Are there any more, or are we ready to? No, we got more.
Another challenge, I think, is accessing the downtown, especially down Brewery Hill for bicycles and walkers, people who are up on the bench would like to be able to bike or walk in town rather than drive, and encouraging that and reducing motor vehicles could help a little bit with some of the parking issue.
All right. Anybody else? So again, come up, get 3 stickers, and then vote for what you think is the biggest challenge downtown.
Same question.
I got my 10,000 steps in this morning.
Did you? Oh, so now you're giving it to him? Can we make sure we have access to the slides? Like with the public? They're already on the webpage?
They're already on
On the planning board webpage or just the main?
They're in the city. And under planning board.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, the, PowerPoint. But you might mention that if we're working on it, it will be up there so people. And our meetings will be public, so make sure that. Yeah, right. Since I'm running the seminar, I gotta go. Yeah, right. And I'll probably look out here about 7. I see a lot of commonality. You and I need to have coffee. Because it's land use plans, map. Know that we're working on it. I think I need to share that with you early.
I don't see it. I don't see it. These slides. I'll set the website, but I don't see them. Did it go somewhere else?
Like documents maybe towards the end.
There are documents, but this isn't on there. Zoning. Subdivision.
Keep going.
No, the rest is just meeting information. Nope. Bring it back.
All right. So everybody get a chance to vote? So now we're going to talk about what you guys see as some opportunities to improve the downtown moving forward, things that can be done. Joan already started us off with the ADUs and the density. She got ahead of us here a little. More dense development. What other opportunities do you guys think are out there? Come on, Nick. They can be. But we've talked a lot about connectivity of all the trails to the downtown, and then it came up Brewer Hill. Yeah, and more connectivity.
the opportunity is more connectivity and the, current plan to try to get the state of Montana to help pay for a pathway down Brewery Hill.
So we have an opportunity to make the walkability even better.
I think there is a lot of opportunity to expand the downtown. I mean, even just one block west to Hauser. I mean, there's some businesses there. The post office is there. It's only a block away, and it should be easy with some signs and some businesses and, some beautification maybe and some good sidewalks. But that should really be pursued if, it's too difficult to find a space on Broadway itself.
An opportunity to expand the downtown corridor to the side streets, like a block off. Does that kind of sum it up? Yeah, and I'm gonna feel terrible, but the new Post and Bank, or what is the Babcock and Miles, they've done a great job of kind of pulling off that block off of Broadway.
Parking reform and re-envisioning what your downtown can look like. So we know that back in angle parking is actually way safer, and you could do it. You may only just be able to do it on one side of the street and have a safe bike lane on the other side of the street. But there's a group in Montana that will come town and remarket, like for a temporary period, like for a month, to let people try it, which sounds like a great opportunity.
So really you can look at it several different ways. You can construe it as an opportunity, but again, only my opinion, but we're in a position where things have to be done now. And I look at both and I want to pick on the city, but I'm going to throw the county in with the city. In the current situation we are in, there's got to be an alteration in direction and just facilities change. The city's in a 100-year-old building. We're in 120-year-old buildings. The useful life and the ability to do anything with those anymore is kind of run out, and we are taking the steps, at least at the county. And there could be an opportunity to both free up real estate and consolidating our services, and possibly consolidating with the city into one, I guess would be a government campus for accessibility and unifying a lot of things. There's a lot of moving parts to that. It's very early on. We have the property and the Cedarwood property to do that. And that is the plan, but those conversations and the connection we have and the open lines of communication we have with the city right now, I mean, those are things to contemplate moving forward, and doing so, evacuating some of the facilities we're currently in to either those opportunities, whether it be parking or housing or the enhancement of the Main Street. I think there could be something there moving forward. Again, it's early and there's a lot of discussions to be had, but I think it's an opportunity. But again, there's a lot of folks here, both resident and visitor, that we're in this position of, I really feel we have to do something. That could be an opportunity. Sometimes the must overweighs and gets some things done sooner, but that will remain to be seen.
To kind of add to the density, going vertical density. I think that is something that's really important to try and acknowledge. It's a really good way to maximize your infrastructure, as well as your square foot, and just really take advantage of the footprint here without having to sprawl. And then also, the urban renewal district, I think, is a really good opportunity. We have funding that's getting kiddied away for whether that's developing more of our downtown area, whether that's workforce housing, whether it's commercial businesses, sidewalks, beautification. There's a lot of factors that fit within that district and within their purview. So I think that's a really great opportunity that our community has, that more people should be vocalizing, because it's at such an infant stage that we have a lot of opportunity to help sculpt what that looks like. And so really getting involved early is crucial. And so I just hope that, again, communicating that and educating that is always the hardest part. That's a challenge for sure. But if we can actually get the right, or get voices in the room and get those ideas on paper and get like criteria developed that means something to not just the same 10 people, but the entire community, I think is crucial.
The old clinic, I know that it's got a lot of asbestos in it and it was just sitting there like in one block. And that's kind of wasted space, isn't it? Not to clean it up.
So revitalizing the old clinic or replacing it or doing something
I
there.
think they need to, yeah.
Yep. So Chelsea wants to know, do we want to expand that to a bigger picture, revitalizing old buildings? Because I know it's come up, and I'm gonna say it wrong, the Theatorium? Is that how you guys call it? I mean, there's some older buildings, so perhaps there's some opportunities to revitalize older or abandoned buildings that are kind of ties into if there's new government facilities, we could rehab the old ones or do something different there. I think those are just good examples of, trying to look for opportunities to
If the old
reuse.
clinic has asbestos in it, it may well be able to be considered as a brownfield site, and there's a lot of money that could be brought into town to
Right.
help
Mhm.
revitalize.
I think trying to improve bicycle access down Broadway is always going to be problematic. But I think there's an opportunity now with the city contemplating some street improvement plans that there could be some enhanced bicycle lanes included in some of the parallel streets to Broadway, Platt and the other street that's just
Platt
on
and
the,
Hauser and
yeah,
Oak
Platt
and
and Hauser. Mhm.
maybe some just one block off bike lane.
Right, one block off of Broadway.
I'm having a little trouble phrasing this, but I think there's an opportunity to preserve economic diversity that has existed until very recently in the whole larger downtown or ditch area. And if we keep thinking in terms of growing the business aspect of downtown, a lot of those affordable houses and the quaintness that surrounds downtown could be lost. So it's, in my mind, one of the better things about Red Lodge was the fact that there was a great diversity of income and rubbing shoulders and everybody being part of the community. And as we keep making improvements, it's possible to improve a certain category of residents right out of town. So the opportunity exists to save the threatened population of Red Lodge.
Is there an opportunity to improve on the parking situation by pairing businesses with complementary operating hours so that we kind of manage the flow, the migration of people and kind of keep it even throughout the street? So like some type of incentive program to pair these morning, afternoon, evening businesses within the same like shared block.
Summarize. So Dwight, what you're suggesting would be kind of a collaborative, like the evening bars and stuff, work with some of the retail and share parking where there are different hours of operation?
For example, the kids' corner and the dance school. So the kids' corner is active during the day, dance school is closed in the evening, the dance school, but that same block is affected by those migrating pools of kids. So you don't put all the kids stuff in one area, you like create an incentive program to control the migration of people through the downtown corridor.
And my opportunity kind of touches on Chelsea's vertical density situation, but a lot of the upstairs areas of the downtown buildings we have in town, those that are developed, whether they're for apartments or other businesses, they often are really nice and I think a really unique part of the town. I think trying to capitalize on all of the upstairs spaces where possible in town would help improve downtown.
What other opportunities you guys see out there? Oh, he'll come back in a second. We're gonna make Jeff do his steps tonight.
I see an opportunity to improve the look of Main Street by, as the American flags wear out, bringing back the international flags. I just think it's beautiful to see different flags and makes it a more welcoming for more people. I also see a possible opportunity if there is going to be some planning to build a new government building to create a assisted living for our elders space like it was on the first floor and put the government offices upstairs.
What? Just assisted living.
This one's kind of niche as well, but the opportunity for more side street kind of business action, for example, what we see with like Junction 7 and like Beartooth Medicinal. I think it's like, I've just noticed as somebody living here, it's really cool when you're just like kind of dipping off to the side and there's like business and action going on and apartments above that.
On the city level, we're working with an opportunity to use some of the city land to lease that land to a developer for workforce housing. And that's a huge opportunity that we're working on. And I think that the city has land in different places that could accommodate workforce housing and make it so that developers can actually afford to do that.
So maybe in a broader sense, we have opportunities for some public-private partnerships.
Partnerships, yeah.
Specific to workforce housing or broader? Specific to workforce housing.
I live up on the golf course, and when we had the Renaissance Festival, that was really hard to get out of the golf course because of all the cars coming from every which way. We don't like stoplights, is that correct?
I can't tell you what you do or don't like. I think there was, we had something on here, maybe it was a challenge about traffic control for events and things. But we can, so what would be the opportunity there? I guess there's that back to challenges. Okay. Yeah, no, your big events, I've been down for the Iron Horse Rodeo or the 4th of July or different things. Traffic management during your big events is a challenge. And I think they'll have a better plan for the Renaissance Festival next year and more shuttles. And I think they're already talking about it, or I've already heard discussions about it. So
I see that as a definite opportunity because there are systems that are used all across the country where they've identified a somewhat external big space and they run buses and it works beautiful.
So like a park and shuttle could be an
Yes, yeah,
opportunity
a
to
shuttle.
relieve some of the downtown pressure of the traffic and,
Yeah.
or for your big events?
For the events, yeah.
So,
No, to develop a system for shuttling.
like a park and ride? You could put them. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Other ideas, opportunities you guys see for the downtown? All right, Chelsea, what do you got?
Again, and I know I've kind of preached on this all day, but maximizing on public spaces, um, enhancing those, making them better, making them more attractive to locals as well as tourists. Whether that means bringing in small functions, events, activities, making them more functional in terms of how you can utilize those, making them a more year-round alternative, not just grass spaces, but kind of build up on those to make them, again, functional and really attractive to really everybody. So.
All right. Any more? Or are we ready to do some stickers? Nick's ready. He likes the smiley faces.
All
right.
I have a comment if everybody else is done. I was just wanted to elaborate on the connectivity that was mentioned earlier to the hospital and the fact that, you know, there's discussion with the Brewery Hill. There's also an opportunity to carry forward conversations and discussions with MDT as they develop that segment of 212 to ensure that there's usable, practical pedestrian and bicycle that whatever they come up with for a design adequately addresses or incorporates pedestrian and bicycle activity and not just have a normal regular sidewalk, which really won't accommodate both, but really think about also, and it also would provide another link to the West Bench, particularly Spires and Circle C with the trail that comes down off the bench past the hospital. So it's another opportunity for connectivity from the outer reaches of the community to the downtown with alternative transportation options.
Kind of piggybacking on that idea, I think we should look for opportunities that would provide increased connectivity from downtown to Rock Creek.
All right. Should we do some stickers and prioritize? Let's do it.
Then wouldn't it be good to mention?
Planning board on Tuesday. I was sorry.
All right. Going to move on to maybe the most difficult, the last one. We want to talk about your ideas for a long-term vision. What do you want to see the downtown in 20, 30 years? Again, I'm going to reference Jim did his best to synthesize the vision statement from the 2006 action plan. So as you look through some of those elements, let us know if you think they're still applicable. We need to hit that. No, that's done. We did it. Strike it out. Stuff that might need to be modified, added, brand new stuff. So this one's pretty open. But we do want to know what do you see the downtown looking like in 20 years? Yeah, Jeff wanted to.
Well, this definitely does coordinate with the efforts of Beartooth Trails, I think. But yeah, just the idea that people can come here and we too living here can think of a place where not only can you enjoy the facilities and amenities within town, but you have trails that can connect you straight to the backcountry that we have, you know, not far from us. This idea that we literally have a town to mountains kind of connectivity, and just the possibilities we can do that with that as far as marketing it, or, you know, just the quality of life that the residents here could enjoy because of it.
To kind of echo on that, but also I feel like we touched on this throughout the day, but never really honed in on it. downtown should absolutely be a reflection of not just our historic character, the facades of the streets and the aesthetic of that downtown, but it should also be a reflection of our respect for the outdoors that we have. And so whether that is elements of nature throughout this historical piece, or just really bringing in that factual evidence, bringing in signage, bringing in just even it could be sculptures of the wilderness or like the wildlife that we have in our area. I think that's one thing that's kind of touched on, but hasn't really been nailed down. And I think just again, showing that reflection of what we love around us within that community and within that downtown. Because it's one thing, like, I think about this a lot, where we really are the bull and the bear, because it's a Wild West town with bears off our back door. So I think that's kind of a interesting way to kind of look at it. And that's what makes us unique, is the fact that it's not just a Western town. It's not just a rodeo town. It's also a mountain bike town. It's a climbing town. It's a tree town. It's a river town. And those two melting together is really cool and not something you can capture in any other community.
That was a lot, but since I have to synthesize this and write it down at some point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chelsea, but you're saying the downtown needs to reflect the history of Red Lodge, but also the current, the diversity and today and the future. Yep. Okay.
Red Lodge being this kind of gateway to adventure in Yellowstone and everything. We have a lot of young people in downtown that enjoy, everything that's available, but I would actually like to see more seniors. I'd like my parents to be more involved, more a part of downtown. And if we were going to solve the assisted living, the need for assisted living or more senior housing, or that somehow maybe just a block back, maybe more a Hauser, that there's more, like we make an effort that in the future that seniors are, just as well represented as young people.
When I think about Red Lodge being in the news in terms of being best small town in America and things like that, and also thinking about why I love living here, I love that it doesn't look like every other town, and I appreciate that we have laws and rules in place that help protect our somebody mentioned unique small businesses being downtown, and I feel like we have protections in place for mom and pop businesses that keep out like big box stores and things that show up in other communities where those protections aren't in place.
I think the downtown area of Red Lodge should put a little more emphasis on services and attractions for families, not just adults, more family type activities.
I was going to kind of echo what Jen said, but just that there isn't the feeling of sprawl, that our downtown doesn't expand north along Highway 212 in this like sprawling, like we all know what the west end of Billings or Bozeman or areas like that. I think that maybe is what she was trying to say, but I think that would be important.
So just so I make sure and understand, keeping it compact and more of the vertical, denser development so that it stays downtown.
Yeah, so it stays downtown and that it doesn't just,
end up
as it
3 miles
grows,
long.
it just doesn't start to, not to fire shots at Family Dollar, but like that's a good example of it kind of like moving that way. And then as you get out of city limits, then you different zoning and all of a sudden you have, fast food restaurants and, and then our entrance to the community becomes this, like it doesn't start at the roundabout. Is that where you're like, like Sue said, you take a deep breath and realize you're in Red Lodge. But if, we litter it with sprawl on the, exits and entrances, it doesn't do much for the community.
I'd like to see sort of more resting spots. Pride Park is great, but I see that as being about the only green space downtown. Maybe improving our connection to Rock Creek from 19th Street down to 17th. That Eagle's Nest and the B&B that's going to be leveled, taking advantage of that natural space and enhancing the downtown that way.
Who else wants to weigh in? Are any of these things in the old, or it's not that old, the 2006 vision statement jumping out at you guys? I don't remember. I think it was you, ma'am, that mentioned kind of a diversity in services and especially not solely relying on tourism and the seasonality of that, or thought I heard that comment earlier. I don't remember. I think it was someone at that table, but I mean, is that a reality or something that you guys support in the vision? Or, you know, it used to say tourism remains the crux. Is that true? You want it to be focused on tourism? Or do you want it to be more of a mix, locals and tourists and everybody?
I like the sentence there that say services and specialty manufacturing intended to diversify employment opportunities, because I feel like tourism is very important and it needs to continue to be supported. But I also like the idea of community members who want to start a business and maybe create some other unique thing that nobody has thought of yet, to be able to have support in doing that. So I think that piece of the paragraph kind of, to me, sums that up. So I would like diversity, not just all tourism.
You've got all the elements, but it doesn't sound like Red Lodge. It sounds like the blood has been sucked out. And how to get there? I would think that an awful lot of people would say that the key characteristic of Red Lodge is that it is an actual community, that there's interaction every time we can create it. And if it started out somehow to, even though it's looking forward, it could say something to the effect of Red Lodge has a history of being a lively, interactive community where people of all whatevers have interacted. I mean, you go back and you look at the mining period and coming along, and then deal with this stuff in that context. It's just lacking a context. And yet it's got every last element in it.
We've got that same comment, but nobody's been able to answer it for me on what is Red Lodge and what should the vision statement be for the downtown?
How about a contest?
I'm just going to plug it into AI. No. So Jim's wondering if, yeah, the brand statement the Sherry and the Chamber of Commerce had is a little more the feel you guys are looking for, or think it should be. Well, we can steal it from her. More of that flavor. Okay.
I was going to echo that same bit, is that the brand statement really is a good representation. I think it's obviously a little bit more honed in on tourism and has very much the chamber's voice to it. So I think it could be a collaborative effort with a lot of the different organizations in town, just individuals. But this does capture that essence that, and even though I think in a vision statement, it's a little harder because what we're doing with the master plan is very much, again, it's a government document. So it's going to have that distaste, but I do believe that it should have incorporations of something like this. Maybe not so cheeky, but definitely have those specifically some of the buzzwords that we hear a lot is the character, the authenticity. That one I think really was a great word, is that Red Lodge has its own authenticity that you can't recreate and you can't define. And so being able to incorporate some of those character pieces into the vision statement, I think will be really important. But in doing so, I think providing context in that master plan document is also important because, again, not a single one of us has been able to identify this the same way. Not a single person can define what Red Lodge's community character is because it means something different to everybody. So it really is important that when you put that in a master plan, you provide some of that context, because otherwise 20 years from now, people might take that the wrong way. It's like, well, my character means this, and that can be detrimental. And so it's something to just be very careful of when you use words like that. When you use, I hate to use the word jargon, but when you use that kind of jargon that you can't define, it can be dangerous when you're using that for a vision statement and when you're using that for a guiding force throughout your community. So just providing that context. I don't think it's necessarily that you leave it out, but just being very careful with how you use it.
Anybody else?
I think of all the young families, and Halloween is really fun for me. And just seeing how they block off Main Street and it's whole families walking down in their costumes and stuff. And when we have the music here in town and all the kids come from wherever, and then they have the music for everyone, and to maybe make it more like for young families, that it's not just skiing, it's solid. And I think that's really important to have that.
Great. So I think we still got some time here, a little bit, a few minutes. I might step out of my lane. I'm here to listen. I want to get input, but listening through the day and stuff. I do want to bounce them and use you guys as kind of a sounding board, because Jim and I are tasked with going back and writing this all up, right? One thing I've noticed and heard, going back to Chelsea and the authenticity thing, I grew up in Forsyth. I live in Billings. You know, I played ball against y'all when you were still the Redskins, but I like coming down here with my family because Red Lodge is still real. It's a small Montana town. It's not a Western ski town like a lot of them. And Red Lodge is still real to me. And I don't know if that's what you guys, is that kind of what you're trying to express, is that you're still a small town Montana and you want to kind of stay that way and keep that culture while you're moving forward and trying to be visionary? I see a lot of nodding heads, so.
We're a community-oriented community, if you want to put it mildly. That's what we are. I mean, in my opinion, that's my opinion. In a lot of other towns I've been in and lived in the state, it's not like that. And I've lived in little ones and big ones, and Red Lodge is really community-oriented. I don't know how else to describe it, but
No, we work in communities across the state, across the region, and it blows me away every time I do one of these public forums down in Red Lodge, the turnout, the participation. We've done 3 of these today and the room's been packed every time. And people care and they're passionate and they come, and, you know, I might do a similar hearing, another little town, and one council member and the mayor show up. And here I'm like telling my whole staff, plan on 20, 30 people showing up. They're like, whatever. I'm like, plan on 20 or 30 people showing up and they're going to give you good input. because they care. So you care? I like that. Did you hear that, Sherry? A spirit of serving each other? What else you guys want to put up here before we turn you loose with the stickers for the last time?
I was just gonna mention that in the kind of this theme of keeping the downtown business or downtown area is just the core part of Red Lodge and the center for the commercial center and governmental center for everything that goes on. That some of that wording is in the current growth policy and has been in the growth policy since 1994. So when you're thinking about a vision statement and how you consolidate or come up with some wording, you know, there's some wording in there that might help sort of capture that aspect of it. The other statement that's been in the growth policy since 1994 is, and I can't remember the exact wording, but basically it says, when people come back to Red Lodge, they know they've been home because it's not like any place else they've been. And I think that kind of, that has really kind of given guidance to how we've grown and evolved since 1994 to now. So that's kind of I think that kind of might capture some of what people have said throughout the day in terms of the uniqueness of Red Lodge. It's a community, it's compact and still has a central downtown business area that's the core of activities. It's not sprawled out.
Great. Anybody else? All right.
One word that I do think of a lot when I do think of Red Lodge is open, and for multiple reasons. So we're open for business, we're open on our main street, and more so than ever, we have a full commercial district. When I first moved here 10 plus years ago, there was a lot of vacancy on Main Street. And so now to see a full downtown district that's open for business and ready to work, ready to serve folks coming in, but also there's an open-mindedness in Red Lodge that is very unique to me, and I kind of brought this up earlier, but we have people from everywhere with their own opinions, but people are open-minded to those opinions. It's not just, no, we don't want that way of life. We're open to hear what you have to say. We're open to try new things. We're open to add this into our melting pot. So there's an openness in Red Lodge that I think is really important, and just an open heart attitude with everybody that comes in, where it is that good neighbor thing where you meet someone new on the street. They are your neighbor. They might be here for a day, but they're your neighbor that day. And I think that's really important to remember.
That's on his way.
Chelsea's word openness made me think of something else about openness. And I don't know that well, I guess it could fit in with the long-term vision. Working part-time in a retail business on Main Street, a lot of people come in the evenings who family oriented. They mention, you're the only place open. We were open till 7 o'clock at night. And so I feel that and maybe this should go under opportunity, somehow encouraging or helping businesses be able to stay open in the evening hours when people are walking around the street, maybe don't want to go to a bar, have kids. The candy store stays open late when they stay busy. If you can sum that up somehow. Yeah, I don't know if Chelsea's openness was a little different point, but for
Would the evening more of the family activities
that,
and
that might be more appropriate for it.
more family-centered stuff versus just adult. and-
After 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
My experience with Red Lodge is before I moved here, we came and visited Red Lodge. And when I went back home, all I could think of is coming back home. To me, Red Lodge was home because it had everything I needed. It's home. And I think a lot of people feel that way that have visited and want to live here. It's because this is the home place.
Just to play devil's advocate here. In my experience, when I tell people that I'm living in Red Lodge, they say, isn't it expensive to live there? So I think it's the perception is that this is like a little mini Jackson Hole or something, but I always get that. And I think we need to work on changing that suspicion.
Go back to the livable. All right. Dave's giving me the watch time thing, so let's go to the stickers and so I don't end up going over time here.
Guess so. I don't have much choice.
So, Jeff, Dave, I had a question. I want to know if the slides would be available later.
They will. There's an older version, so I already answered one. So there's an older version. But I'll get the new version available. Do I have the latest version? If not, so what is spot is the what's next. So this is going to come to planning board, multiple hearings, public input, welcome. Ultimately, it's going to go to city council, public hearing, welcome. So that to me is kind of the important of what's next part.
All right. I want to thank everybody again for coming out tonight, bearing with us, and a lot of great input. Angie had a question about how will you know this gets put into the plan? How will you tell? We will go back and we'll summarize from all three focus groups, the items that were brought up, the voting, how the priorities were, and get a report to the planning board. That'll be a supporting document right in the master plan showing the public input and where your guys' priorities were. And then we will do our best. Jim is going to weave in all these common themes and priorities into the plan, and they'll be reflected in the action items. I don't know that it'll be, yeah, I don't know that we'll have a checklist. You could go down and say they added this, they added that, but hopefully when we're done, the plan will reflect the input we got and it'll be pretty obvious. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Jim, the planning board, Jeff and Al. You had to sneak out for a hockey thing, but we'd be happy to visit with you about it more. And with that, I'll turn it over to Al.
Well, I'd like to thank you again, for your attendance and participation and good ideas that have been thrown out. It's a really important part of the public process, and it's really important that we get your input as members of the community and as we move forward. I kind of forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. So I'm Jeff DiBenedetto for those who don't know, and I'm vice chair of the planning board who don't know that either. I should have said that first off before. I think it's important to talk a little bit about what the next steps are. As Chad mentioned, the information will be gathered from the 3 focus group meetings today and incorporated into a draft plan, a draft of the downtown master plan that will come to the planning board for review. And while the planning board is reviewing that document, those meetings are open to the public, and you're more than welcome to attend those meetings and provide additional input into that. And that process will probably go on through October, November, thereabouts. Once the planning board reviews and then the draft and then they'll make a recommendation for a final draft that will go to the city council for review and approval. There'll be another public meeting with the planning board reviewing that the draft or final draft of the master plan. And then there'll be also another public meeting when the master plan goes before the city council. So there'll be a couple more opportunities for more formal participation, but also informally, you're also invited and encouraged to attend the planning board meetings during which either the growth policy is being discussed or this master plan, and that's an ongoing process through this fall. Again, I want to thank Chad and Jim for their participation and leading these three scoping meetings. We had some really good input throughout the day, as I said. So, thank you for participation and have a good evening.